They told me a memory wipe was like a gentle dream, a soft reset for a troubled soul. They lied. It was a violent birth into a world I didn't recognize, a chaotic symphony of neon and filth playing out in the gutter of a forgotten star system. My first sensation was the biting cold of recycled air and the throbbing in my skull, a blacksmith's hammer pounding against an anvil where my identity used to be. I was lying in a puddle of something iridescent, my clothes a cheap synthetic weave that felt alien against my skin. A name surfaced from the wreckage of my mind. Kael. It felt borrowed. My hands, scarred and calloused, clenched into fists. Muscle memory. My body knew things my mind didn't. It knew the precise angle to twist a man's arm to snap the bone. It knew the subtle shift in air pressure that preceded a plasma bolt. And it knew, with a certainty that chilled me to my core, that I was being hunted. A flicker in my peripheral vision, not a reflection, but a ghost in the machine. A single line of corrupted data scrolling across my optic nerve. Find the Weaver. Tenebris. She holds the thread. The message vanished, leaving behind a phantom ache. Tenebris. The name tasted of rust and ozone. A rogue planetoid, a black market haven where empires went to die and secrets were the only currency that mattered. And the Weaver? The name meant nothing, but the directive was absolute. It was the only piece of my past I owned. I hauled myself to my feet, my senses coming online with a jarring rush. The stench of fermented alien fruit, the sizzle of faulty power conduits, the low thrum of a planetoid's core fighting against the void. This wasn't a place for quiet contemplation. This was a place to run. Two figures detached themselves from the shadows down the alley, their silhouettes distorted by long coats and the glint of pulse carbines. They moved with the synchronized grace of predators, not city guards. Corporate enforcers. My body reacted before my mind could form a plan. I vaulted over a stack of humming cryo crates, the synthetic fabric of my jacket snagging on a rusty edge. A searing pain erupted in my side as a plasma bolt slagged the metal where I'd been a nanosecond before. My legs pumped, carrying me deeper into the labyrinthine bowels of Tenebris. I didn't know where I was going, but my instincts did. Down, always down, where the shadows were deeper and the signals were scrambled. The chase was a blur of frantic energy and calculated risks. I slid through closing bulkhead doors, kicked off walls to change direction in a low-gravity sector, and used the steam from a ruptured pipeline as cover. They were good. They anticipated, they flanked, they communicated with silent hand signals. But I was better. Or my body was. It was a finely tuned weapon, and I was just along for the ride. I finally lost them in the chaotic din of the undermarket, a sprawling cavern where anything could be bought or sold. Beings from 100 worlds haggled over everything from illegal cybernetics to vials of pure distilled memory. I kept my head down, pulling the hood of my jacket over my face. The message in my head repeated, a mantra against the panic. Find the Weaver. But how do you find a ghost in a city of shadows? I started with the information brokers, data leeches who plugged their consciousness directly into the station's corrupted data streams. The first one I found was a gas-based life form, swirling in a containment tank. Its voice a series of melodic chimes that translated through a vocoder. It took my last few credits and gave me nothing but static, its chimes turning dissonant when I mentioned the name Weaver. The second, a grizzled human with more chrome than flesh, just laughed, a harsh, metallic sound. The Weaver's a myth, pal. A ghost story told to scare naughty little corporations. Even if she was real, she wouldn't be found by the likes of you. He pointed a trembling, cybernetic finger at my face. You've got the look of a man running from his own ghost. Tenebris eats men like you for breakfast. He was right. I was a blank slate, a man defined only by his pursuers. Frustration gnawed at me. I was a weapon without a wielder, a hunter without a target. I found a grimy little bar tucked away in a forgotten maintenance corridor, the kind of place where people went to disappear. The air was thick with smoke from narcotic incense and the low murmur of desperate conversations. I took a seat in the darkest corner, ordering a glass of something that smelled like industrial solvent and tasted even worse. And then I saw her. She wasn't a myth. She was sitting 3 stools down, nursing a glass of luminescent fluid. She looked human, but there was an otherness to her, a stillness that seemed to bend the chaos of the bar around her. Her hair was the color of spun moonlight, and her eyes. Her eyes held the depth of a star-filled void. When she looked up and our gazes met, the world seemed to stutter. My cybernetic vision glitched, overlaying her image with 1,000 cascading lines of code I couldn't decipher. I felt a phantom sensation, a memory of rain on a world with a silver sky. The Weaver. It had to be her. The two enforcers from the alley entered the bar, their eyes scanning the crowd with cold, professional detachment. They hadn't seen me yet, but they would. Time slowed to a crawl. My combat protocols screamed at me to run, to fight, to survive. But the woman, the Weaver, just watched me, her expression unreadable. I made a choice. I stood up and walked towards her, every step a gamble. The enforcers tensed, their hands moving towards their weapons. "You're a hard person to find," I said, my voice low. Her lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "I'm not the one who's lost, Kael." She knew my name. The world tilted on its axis. The lead enforcer raised his carbine. "Step away from the asset, Revenant." Revenant. Another name, a title. It felt cold, deadly. A shiver, not of fear, but of recognition, traced its way down my spine. The Weaver, her name was Lyra, she'd whispered it into my mind the moment I approached, didn't flinch as the enforcers closed in. Her eyes, those endless pools of starlight, were still locked on mine. "They rebooted you again," she stated, a hint of something I couldn't identify, sorrow perhaps in her voice. "Your leash is shorter this time." Leash? Rebooted? The words were keys to locks I didn't know I had. Before I could process, the bar erupted in a symphony of controlled chaos. Lyra's hand brushed against a data slate on the counter, and every light in the bar simultaneously shattered, plunging us into absolute darkness. The enforcers fired blindly, their plasma bolts illuminating the room in strobing, violent flashes. My body moved on its own, a ghost in the dark. I grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her down behind the bar just as a bolt seared the air where her head had been. "This way!" she commanded, her voice calm amidst the pandemonium. She wasn't afraid. She was in control. She led me through a hidden panel behind the bar and into a network of service tunnels, the sounds of shouting and gunfire fading behind us. My night vision enhancements flickered on, bathing the narrow corridor in a ghostly green light. Lyra's skin seemed to absorb the light, giving her an ethereal glow. "What are you?" I asked, my voice raspy. "What am I?" "Revenant. Asset. They called you the Weaver," she corrected softly, her fingers tracing a pattern on the grimy tunnel wall. The metal shimmered and seemed to flow like water for a moment, revealing a keypad that wasn't there before. She tapped in a code, and a section of the wall slid open. "I am a key. And you, Kael, were the one forged to turn me." The room we entered was a stark contrast to the decay of Tenebris. It was a clean white space, filled with humming servers and holographic displays showing complex swirling star charts. It was a hidden sanctuary, a pocket of order in a universe of chaos. "You were their finest," she continued, turning to face me. The clean light of the room revealed the fatigue in her eyes, the weight of a burden I couldn't comprehend. A consciousness decanted into a disposable shell, a cybernetic ghost they could point and fire. "They sent you for me, you know, on Cygnus X1. The name Cygnus X1 triggered another glitch. I saw a flash of a city made of glass, silver rain, and her face, not weary, but terrified. My hands were around her throat. The vision was so real I stumbled back, gasping. I looked at my own hands, half expecting to see them covered in her blood. "What did you do to me?" I snarled, the phantom memory making me sick. "I did nothing," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You did. You made a choice. You let me go. For that, the Consortium wiped you clean and sent you back to finish the job." The Consortium. The name resonated with a deep primal fear. A shadow organization that controlled the very fabric of interstellar travel. They weren't just a corporation. They were the architects of the modern galaxy. "Why me? Why are you so important?" Lyra walked over to a central console. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy bloomed into existence between us. The Consortium's power comes from their control of the wormhole network. They didn't discover it. They stabilized it, but their methods are brutal. Ike forcing a lock. The network is becoming unstable. Reality is fraying at the edges. She pointed to several points on the map that glowed an angry, pulsating red. These are full-scale reality collapses. Entire systems ceasing to exist. I can resonate with the network. I can feel the patterns, the frequencies. I can soothe it, repair it. I can weave reality back together. The Weaver. It was literal. The Consortium doesn't want it repaired, I realized, the pieces clicking into place with horrifying clarity. They want to control the chaos. A collapsing system is a powerful weapon, and a free Weaver is a threat to their control, she finished. They want me as their tool, a living computer to aim their destruction. But my abilities are growing, evolving. Soon I may be able to do more than just repair. Her eyes burned with a fierce intensity. I might be able to create. A new wave of enforcers, bigger, better armed, stormed the undermarket. I could hear their comms chatter bleeding into my auditory sensors, a network of ghosts hunting us through the station. We didn't have much time. Where do we go? I asked. Lyra's expression was grim. There is a place. A convergence point in the network, a place where reality is thin. It's called the Silent Orrery. From there, I might be able to sever the Consortium's control for good. But it's deep in the heart of their territory. It was a suicide mission. My programming, the dormant code buried beneath the memory wipe, screamed at me how impossible it was. The odds were infinitesimal. But looking at Lyra, seeing the desperate hope in her eyes, I felt something else. A flicker of defiance. A ghost of the man who had made a choice once before. How do we get off this rock? I asked. Lyra allowed herself a small, tired smile. I know a pilot. He's reckless, owes me several lifetimes of favors, and flies a ship that's uglier than a Gorgonian sludge worm. But he's the best. She paused, her gaze searching mine. Can I trust you, Kael? The real you? Or will the Revenant wake up and finish his mission? I looked at my hands again, the hands of a killer. The hands that had once held her in their grasp. The memory was a poison, but it was also a proof. Proof that I was more than a program. I had made a choice. I could make it again. The Revenant works for me now, I said, my voice raw with a conviction I didn't know I possessed. Let's go find your pilot. Our escape from Tenebris was a symphony of fire and desperation. Lyra, it turned out, was more than just a reality warper. She was a master of disruption. She didn't just hack systems, she convinced them to have an existential crisis. Traffic control grids argued with themselves, automated defense turrets targeted each other, and docking clamps developed a sudden, profound fear of letting go of ships. My role was more direct. While Lyra sowed digital chaos, I was the physical manifestation of it. We fought our way to the lower docking bays, a grimy, forgotten sector where the ships were held together by rust and sheer stubbornness. The pilot's ship, the Stray Comet, lived up to Lyra's description. It was a heavily modified freighter that looked like it had lost a fight with an asteroid field and then been put back together by a blind mechanic. Its owner, a four-armed, fast-talking Xylotian named Jax, was even more of a piece of work. Lyra, my luminous star, I knew you'd come crawling back, he chattered, all four of his hands moving at once, checking gauges and adjusting power levels. And you've brought a friend. He looks tense. Is he a friend? He has "I kill people for a living" written all over his face. No offense. Just get us out of here, Jax, Lyra said, strapping herself into the co-pilot's seat. The whole station is about to be on top of us. Details! Details! Jax cackled, his multifaceted eyes gleaming. There's no challenge in a clean getaway. He slammed a series of levers forward, and the Stray Comet lurched away from its moorings with a groan of protesting metal. Consortium cruisers filled our viewport, their sleek, predatory forms a stark contrast to our rust bucket. Warning klaxons blared. They're locking weapons, I yelled, my combat sensors painting a dozen target locks on our hull. Hold on to your appendages, Jack screamed with glee. He threw the ship into a spiraling dive, scraping the side of a massive cargo hauler and using it as a shield. The ship shuddered as plasma fire impacted the hauler behind us. Jax was insane, but he was a genius. He flew not like a pilot, but like a musician playing an impossible instrument, weaving us through a chaotic ballet of ships and station architecture. We were moments from clearing the station's mass shadow when our luck ran out. A specialized Consortium vessel, a hunter-killer frigate, decloaked directly in our path. Its forward cannons glowed with malevolent energy. "Tractor beam," Lyra said, her voice tight. "They're not trying to destroy us. They want you alive." My hands clenched. The Revenant whispered in the back of my mind, a cold, logical stream of data detailing our precise, inescapable destruction. But the man Kael refused to listen. "Lyra," I said, my eyes fixed on the frigate. "What you said before about creating, can you do it now?" Her eyes widened as she understood. "I don't know. I've never tried anything on this scale. It's dangerous. It could tear me apart. It could tear us apart." "They are not taking you," I stated, the words an unbreakable vow. I placed my hand on her shoulder. My cybernetics, my programming, it was all designed to interface with technology. But Lyra wasn't technology. She was something more. I focused, pushing past the firewalls of my own mind, reaching for that flicker of defiance, the ghost of the man who had made a choice. I wasn't trying to control her. I was offering myself as an anchor, a conduit. "Use me," I whispered. "Ground yourself." She closed her eyes, her hand covering mine. I felt it then. A connection not of flesh or code, but of something deeper. It was like plunging into a silent, infinite ocean of pure potential. The ship around us seemed to vanish. I saw the universe not as stars and planets, but as a tapestry of shimmering threads, a symphony of vibrating frequencies. And I could feel Lyra, a single brilliant point of light reaching out to touch those threads. The Consortium frigate fired. A beam of pure energy designed to cripple and capture shot towards us. Time seemed to stop. Lyra's eyes snapped open. They weren't the eyes of a woman anymore. They were two miniature galaxies, swirling with creation. "No," she commanded, her voice echoing not in the cockpit, but in my mind. The beam of energy didn't just stop, it unraveled. It broke apart into its component photons, a cascade of harmless, glittering light that washed over our ship like a gentle wave. On the bridge of the Consortium frigate, the weapons officer stared at his console in disbelief. The stray comet was gone. In its place was a perfect spherical void, an area of space that simply wasn't. It absorbed all light, all sensor readings. It was a hole in the universe. Then, from the other side of that impossible sphere of nothingness, the stray comet reappeared, its engines flaring as Jax, screaming in a mixture of terror and awe, punched the hyperdrive. The stars elongated and we were gone. I collapsed back into my seat, the connection severing with a psychic snap. The feedback was agonizing, like 1,000 volts of electricity surging through my neural pathways. My vision was a mess of static and error codes. Lyra was slumped in her chair, pale and trembling, a single trickle of blood running from her nose. But she was alive. She was smiling. "I think," she breathed, her voice weak but triumphant, "I'm getting the hang of it." We were safe for now. Hurtling through the unreal space of hyperspace, a ghost, a weaver, and a madman on a ship held together by hope. The silent orrery was our destination, a place to make a final stand. But as I looked at Lyra, I knew this was about more than just a strategic objective. The Consortium had made me a weapon. They had made her a key. They never counted on the weapon falling in love with the lock. The journey to the silent orrery was a tense, quiet affair. Jax, for the first time since I'd met him, was subdued, his usual manic energy replaced by a kind of reverent fear of what he'd witnessed Lyra do. He'd just mutter things like, "Defying physics is bad for the warranty," and "I need a stronger drink." Lyra spent most of the time in a meditative trance, recovering her strength. The effort of unmaking the tractor beam had taken a heavy toll, leaving her psychically scarred. In her sleep, she'd cry out, not in fear, but in pain, as if she could feel the screams of dying star systems, the unraveling of reality itself. I became her guardian. I would sit with her, a silent sentinel, my enhanced senses on high alert for any internal or external threat. During these vigils, the glitches in my memory became more frequent, more vivid. I saw fragments of my past lives as the Revenant, a silent takedown in the zero-G mines of Kepler 186F, a long-range assassination through the methane storms of Titan. Each memory was cold, precise, and devoid of emotion. But then there were other flashes, warmer ones. The memory of Cygnus X1, the Glass City, and the Silver Rain. This time it was clearer. I saw the moment I made the choice. Lyra was cornered, her power nascent and uncontrolled. I had her in my sights, my orders clear. Secure the asset. Terminate if necessary. But when I looked at her, I didn't see an asset. I saw a terrified woman, shackled by a power she didn't ask for. In that moment, the program broke. I fired, but not at her. I took out my own support team and told her to run. The last thing I remembered before the Consortium kill switch activated in my brain was the look of shocked gratitude on her face. These memories weren't just data. They were a part of me. The man, Kael, was re-emerging from the shadow of the Revenant. One cycle, while Lyra was awake, her gaze distant as she watched the swirling chaos of hyperspace, I finally asked the question that had been haunting me. Why me, on Cygnus? Why did you trust me enough to turn your back? She turned to me, her starlight eyes seeming to look right through my cybernetic shell and into the ghost within. I didn't, she said softly. I was just as surprised as you were. But I felt it. A flicker. In the sea of your programming, the cold, hard logic of the machine, there was a tiny island of dissonance, of choice. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. She reached out, her fingers gently tracing the seams on my cybernetic hand. They can wipe your memory, Kael. They can reprogram your instincts. But they can't erase who you are, not completely. Her touch sent a cascade of warmth through my systems, a sensation that had no business existing amidst wires and processors. It was in that moment, in the quiet hum of a fugitive ship lost between the stars, that I understood my purpose. It wasn't just to protect Lyra. It was to prove she was right. We arrived at the Silent Orrery. It was not a planet or a station, but a celestial anomaly. A collection of dead, planet-sized spheres of crystal orbiting a white dwarf star in perfect, silent harmony. The system was a natural dead zone for sensors, the crystal planets refracting and scattering any attempt to see within. It was the perfect place to hide, and the perfect place for Lyra to work. As Jax expertly navigated us through the crystal labyrinth, a sense of dread began to build in me. This felt too easy. The Consortium knew where we were going. They were letting us walk into the heart of their territory. They were waiting. We landed the stray comet inside a massive geode on the largest of the crystal planets. The interior was a breathtaking cavern of glowing, multifaceted crystals, like the inside of a fractured diamond. In the center of the cavern was a raised dais of pure black crystal. "This is it," Lyra breathed, her voice filled with awe. "The focal point. From here I can touch the entire network. And from here they can touch you," I said, my hand resting on the pulse pistol holstered at my side. As if on cue, they appeared, shimmering into existence at the edges of the cavern. They weren't enforcers in armor. They were things like me, revenants, a dozen of them, their faces impassive, their movements perfectly synchronized. And leading them was one whose face I knew from my fragmented memories. My predecessor, my replacement, Revenant Prime. "Subject Kael," Prime said, his voice a synthesized, emotionless monotone. "You have defied your primary function. The Weaver is to be relinquished. Your shell will be decommissioned." Lyra stepped onto the dais, her body already beginning to glow with a soft, internal light. "I can't fight them and do this at the same time, Kael," she said, her voice strained. "You have to buy me time." "Jax, stay with the ship," I ordered. "Get her out of here if I fall." "Don't you dare talk like that, you big, gloomy cyborg!" The Xylosian snapped back, pulling out a ridiculously oversized blaster pistol. "The day Jax leaves a friend behind is the day the stars go out. Now go be a hero." I turned to face the Revenants. 12 perfect weapons. And me, a broken one. But I wasn't just a weapon anymore. "I am not subject, Kael," I said, my own voice sounding strange to my ears. It was a human voice. "My name is Kael." Prime tilted his head, a flicker of something, curiosity, in his optical sensors. "Irrelevant," they charged. What followed was not a fight. It was a calculation. It was my flawed, choice-driven instincts against their cold, perfect programming. I moved like a dancer in a hurricane, my every action designed to be unpredictable. They expected me to follow combat protocols. I didn't. I used the environment, shattering crystals to create blinding flashes of light, using Jax's covering fire to force them into new positions. I fought not to kill, but to disable, to disrupt. It was a losing battle. I was outnumbered, and they were relentless. They cut me, shot me, broke me, My left arm went limp, its internal mechanics shattered. A plasma score ran across my chest, frying a dozen subsystems. Warning signals screamed across my vision. But I didn't stop. Behind me, Lyra was a star being born. The light from the dais was so bright it cast our shadows as long, dancing specters on the crystal walls. I could feel the energy building, a wave of cosmic power that made the very air hum. I took down 3, 4. Jax, with his 4 arms and surprising accuracy, took down 2 more. But there were too many. Prime moved in, his movements a blur. He was faster than me, stronger. We engaged in a brutal dance of close-quarters combat. He disarmed me, his hand clamping around my throat, lifting me off the ground. My systems were failing. My vision was fading to black. "Your deviation has been corrected," Prime stated, his grip tightening. But as my consciousness began to fade, I saw it. The flicker in his eyes behind the cold red light of his optical sensors. A tiny island of dissonance. He had been watching me, learning. He had seen me make a choice, and now he was facing his own. I smiled, a bloody, broken thing. "Your turn," I choked out. Prime hesitated. A single, crucial nanosecond of indecision. It was all Lyra needed. A wave of pure, untainted reality washed out from the dais. It wasn't an attack, it was a song. A frequency of pure being that the Consortium's corrupted code could not comprehend. The Revenants froze, their systems crashing as they were hit by something their programming had no defense against: truth. Prime dropped me, stumbling back, clutching his head. He looked at his hands, then at me, a look of profound, agonizing confusion in his eyes. And then he vanished, along with the others, teleported away by a system desperate to retrieve its broken toys. I lay on the crystal floor, broken but alive. The light from the dais subsided, and Lyra crumpled to the ground, the effort finally overwhelming her. I crawled to her, my one good arm pulling her into my embrace.
"Did it work?"
I whispered. She looked up at me, her face tired but radiant.
"The network."
"It's free," she said. "It's singing." Across the galaxy, the red alerts of collapsing systems blinked out one by one. The wormhole network stabilized, its energy flowing clean and pure for the first time in centuries. We had won. The Consortium had lost its greatest weapon. As Jax brought the stray comet into the cavern to pick us up, I looked at Lyra, her head resting on my damaged chest. The future was uncertain. The Consortium would not forgive, would not forget. They would hunt us to the ends of the universe. But for the first time, my mind was clear. I was not the Revenant. I was Kael, and my purpose was not to kill, but to protect the beautiful, impossible woman who had taught a machine how to choose. We had a universe to save, and a life to build, together. So, you made it. You navigated the cosmic chaos, survived the reality-bending showdowns, and you're still here. Bravo! That's more than I can say for Revenant Prime's therapy budget. Now the big question, what happens next? Does Kael finally get a warranty extension for his battered chassis? Does Lyra take up Galactic interior design, starting with making black holes a little less gloomy? And does Jax ever find a drink strong enough to make him forget he saw a man unfire a laser beam? Well, let's just say their fight is far from over. The Consortium is like that vengeful ex who keeps creating new social media profiles to stalk you across the galaxy. But now Kael and Lyra aren't just running. They're building something, a network of their own. A sanctuary for other corporate experiments, rogue AIs, and anyone else who's tired of being a cog in a cosmic machine. They're trading their most wanted posters for help-wanted signs. And their little family is growing. Imagine teaching a toddler with reality-warping powers not to turn her vegetables into ice cream. The Terrible Twos just got a whole lot more existential. So if you enjoyed this little trip through space, time, and questionable life choices, do me a favor. Hit that like button like it's a Consortium drone. Subscribe faster than Jax can talk his way out of a customs inspection. And drop a comment below. If you woke up with your memory wiped but with one single mission, what would you want it to be? Now,